everybody, and welcome to the Dr. Psych Mom Show. Today, I am going to be talking about something that people ask me, which is, do you have more sex if you both work from home? And before I get to that, please do subscribe. My most recent subscriber episode, I have like over probably 210 by now, but the most recent one was sex for pleasure within marriage over time is an extremely new phenomenon, and it's really useful to get the overall contextual idea of this. Before you get upset about something, it's really helpful to understand the historical context and to understand why, things don't always go the way that you want, and sometimes very counter to all the rest of history and evolution. So it can be a real level setter to kind of understand intellectually more of why things don't go like in romantic movies and porn. And anyway, for that and 200 plus other episodes, please do subscribe. Okay, so along this idea of fantasy versus reality, sometimes people think that the more time you have, the more sex you have. And so one way that they think that this happens is if you both work from home. Or another one that I've heard is if you're divorced. So then if you're divorced and remarried and you don't have the kids on a certain weekend, then do you have more sex? Listen, there's just one big counter to all of this shit, which is people didn't used to work from home, right? And they used to have more sex. Frequency of sex by any research is more earlier, last generation, the generation before, right? Than it is now. So nobody used to telecommute. Nobody. So because there wasn't such a thing. And people used to have more sex. Were they having sex that they wanted to have? Probably not, like the women had to have sex. Their marital rape wasn't even recognized as a thing, right? And also people were cheating more. There was just more sex that was able to be had because people didn't look down as much on cheating. Many men cheated, that was kind of how it was. And that was like, remember, I've told you this so many times, Japanese wives used to pack condoms on the business trips of their husbands, that not too long ago. And it was just understood if a man was deployed, if a man was on a business trip, honestly, if you just didn't want to have sex anymore, you just didn't. And then he did or he didn't elsewhere. But whatever. The point is that honeymoon stage and breeding when you're young and being excited to breed when you're young and in a new relationship has always really been how it is. And if you love each other, you can connect still sexually as long as one or both of you still has a sex drive, and that's nice for many couples that love each other. Also, it is like a completely different animal than the sex that people have with urgency and novelty when they're young and in the honeymoon stage, right? And drive decreases with fertility, as it does for anybody. So I have a million things about this. But point is, do people have more sex when they have more time? If they want to have sex, then sure. If both of them are just like in the honeymoon stage, for example, a couple where they both work from home is definitely going to probably have more sex per week than a couple who doesn't. Although when I think about that, no, because the other couple would at night or in the morning or whenever else they could. If you want to have sex, you're going to have sex. So, saying like if you work from home or if you don't have the kids every other weekend, or a big one that I hear, of course, is when we're retired or like when the kids leave the house. Because the kids leave the house, a lot of women are not through menopause yet, but they're still not spending all their time screwing. Like it's, I just hate to be like the bearer of bad news, but then also I really do like to help people with what reality is. So they don't go and leave their marriage or think that their spouse is broken or bad because they're not using their work day when they work from home to have sex. Because you're going to have the same amount of sex kind of no matter what, as long as you're a happy couple. Or if you're an unhappy couple, guess what? You're working together from home and you're unhappy. So then the woman's just trying to avoid the man all day, or vice versa. Or they're trying to avoid each other in equal measure. And having these ideas about ways that you're going to hack your life so that you have more sex is not helpful. The one thing that I've seen is that most happy couples, if they go on vacation, will have sex. Do they necessarily want to? Sometimes the woman doesn't, but she's just in a good mood from the vacation, or she's drinking a little bit, or it's like a vacation vibe, or it reminds her of how it used to be. And they usually, if you don't even have sex on vacation, then I mean, you're either like older, much older, postmenopause, y'all don't have sex anymore and you just enjoy travel, or you literally hate each other, or you just don't have that romantic connection anymore at all. So that's like a good way to tell. If you go on like a romantic couples vacation, you don't have sex, well, things are not going so well. Is this relationship really a romantic one anymore? Probably not. But most couples still will have the vacation sex. But besides that, people are going to have sex at whatever their set point is. If they don't work together during the day, then they will have sex at night, or they'll have sex in the morning, or they'll have sex on the weekend. And this idea that there's these other people that have more time for sex, you make time for sex. If you want sex, you make time for sex. Like, people have all sorts of work days. Like, some people work 16 hours a day, some people work no hours a day, but everybody eats, right? They eat food. Like, in whatever schedule they can eat it. They can eat it at their desk, they can eat it at a restaurant, they can eat it at their table, but everybody eats enough to stay alive, even though they have a different work schedule. So it's like sex, right? So you're going to have sex if you want to have sex in the windows of time that you have to have sex, if you want to have sex. And and I say this because there's these guys who work from home, like on purpose, because then they think that they could have more sex. And yes, if literally the only time that she's relaxed to have sex is during the day, and she can't do it at night because she's tired, and she can't do it in the morning because she's tired, and like there's all these restrictions. But you know what? If you're in that kind of situation where there's all these restrictions, you're not going to be having sex too much after maybe the first 2 weeks that you work from home, because she doesn't want to be having sex. When there's a lot of restrictions about something, that doesn't mean that you like really like the thing. It means you don't really like the thing. Like, if there's a lot of restrictions around touch, that is not a person who really likes to touch. This is kind of commonsensical, but people don't want to really see it for what it is. But if you are a young couple that loves to have sex, and then you both work from home, yeah, sure, you got more time to have sex. You're probably going to have sex at least a couple more times a week, right? But y'all were having sex anyway. So, it's kind of like, did it really make a difference? We don't have a control group, so we don't know. What I will say is that there's no rates of difference in the couples that I work with, or the individuals I work with that work from home and that don't work from home. After the beginning of the honeymoon stage of working from home, when people are all excited, if they're happy, if they love each other, and they're happy to see each other more, then they may. But then you get into a routine, like with anything else. And same thing with people who are divorced and don't have the kids on the weekend. That weekend may be when they have sex, but that's because they're probably not having sex on the weekend that they do have the kid. Like, it kind of evens out to its set point. And retired couples, it's not just an eternal honeymoon stage. And the ones that say it is are on a lot of HRT. And if their kids were still at home and they were on that HRT in some other kind of universe, they probably would be too. It's really, and that speaks to my point, it's the drive of the person. It's the drive of the couple. It's how they're doing. There are not these hacks where if you get an hour more per day, then like your wife would use it for sex. That's just like not a thing. If she wanted to be having sex, there's plenty of time in the day as it is. And when people really want something, they do it, right? Like, if they really want to watch like a certain TV show, they'll do it on the treadmill at the gym. They'll do it when they're falling asleep. They'll do it in little bits during the day on their phone. If they're like really into seeing the finale of a TV show, they're gonna find time, even if they're busy. Unless we're talking about extreme circumstances. Your kid is sick, you have a huge deadline at work, you're depressed, whatever. But like the average person, just like TLDR, people make time for what they value, kind of no matter what their situation is, except on the extremes. If you're both working like factory jobs, if this is like a, situation where people are like physically exhausted, depleted, like they're scared about being able to put food on the table, no, they're not going to be screwing, right? Because Maslow's hierarchy, they have to figure out food and shelter and all that first. But outside of that situation, in a more normative, fairly calm thing where the stressors, yeah, people have money stressors, people have other stressors, but there's not like an ill child, there's not risk of being evicted, like there's not any like tremendous, like huge existential threats to the person, then they're gonna have sex as much as they want to have sex. Sometimes this happens when guys have like a wife stay at home, like she's decided that she doesn't like her job, so now she's going to be stay at home, and then they picture it's going to be some kind of like sex fest because, you know, she gets back 40 hours a week or 20 if she was working part-time or something, like, and like some percent of that's going to be devoted to sex. Yeah, for the first few weeks while she's excited that like her life is changing and she feels excited and her dopamine is going, oh my God, what's my life going to be like now? You know, but then after that, she figures it out and she gets into a new routine. And then if your set point was twice a week, you're doing it twice a week. If your set point was once a week, you're doing it once a week. Like that just kind of is what it is. You're doing it more in the first half of the cycle than the second half of the cycle. Certainly people's drive goes up when they are excited about something new. There's more like, you know, happy neurotransmitters going on in their brain. And yeah, but that's like the honeymoon stage with something. That's like vacation sex. So change in schedule is like vacation sex. Like for a few weeks, there's like a novelty effect where people are excited. So if you're trying to kind of change up your schedule in some kind of way that allows for sex, imagine how like unsexy it is for like your stay-at-home wife to think that, you know, every Tuesday and Friday, no matter what, she's expected to be home at 12 p.m. to have sex with you. No, like that's, what's she going to do? She's going to, instead of, let's say, going to lunch or going to the gym or going to the grocery store or going to volunteer at the kids' school, she's going to be like, no, I can't because like every single Tuesday and Friday for the rest of my life, I have to have sex. No, like think about that. Like think about having that conversation. You know, that seems like something that she wouldn't want. Unless, of course, and I'm assuming the woman's the lower libido partner, but, you know, could be the man. As I always say, it's 80% of the time it's men that are the higher libido, 20% of the time women. But anyway, if you guys agree on that, but you don't really agree on that. Like, I've not really seen people who agree on that, who agree that like regularly they're going to disrupt their week. You know, I mean, it just doesn't work like that. At night, people are so much, or in the morning, people are so much more willing to say, like, basically every Saturday morning or every Saturday night, basically we have sex. Because it feels like you're not making other choices, you know, of like actually living your life out in the world as a real person for sex. And that's kind of what the stay-at-home partner feels bad about, is that they are considered to now be on the partner's schedule so that the partner can have sex that they want to have on their schedule, balancing their work and everything else. And then they start to feel like, you know, the husband's coming home and just visiting a hooker at home, which is the wife. And that's not hot. I mean, you know, when you're young, all kinds of role play things could be hot, but I haven't seen that one be hot long term, you know, feeling like your husband's hooker. But, you know, takes all kinds. If you find that to be an erotic fetish, then cool. The majority of people do not. So I'm just trying to help you here with the majority situation. And the majority situation is during the day when somebody has free time, they tend to find meaningful ways to them to fill it. And sex could be one of them, but it's probably going to take out from a time of sex that they would have had anyway. People have a set point. People's appetites don't really shift dramatically. Like all of a sudden your wife isn't going to eat twice as much. She's also not going to have sex twice as much unless she is on some kind of drug that makes her want to do both. Or she's not going to want to have sex less dramatically, like in one day or 1 week. She's going to shift to less over time, the same as you are. And as I say all the time, men used to know that drive went down before people were ramping themselves up with constant porn and tea and Viagra and all this shit. But watch any TV show, men got tired of sleeping with their wives. Every single one. I'm rewatching Mad Men. Guess what? He's tired of sleeping with his wife. He likes to sleep with other people. That used to be an understood thing. Like, people don't want to keep doing the same thing over and over again in the way that they did the first time in any part of life. But if you love somebody, you can find something to be connecting and loving. It's not going to be the same level of novelty and excitement, though. Of course not. And if you have other marital disconnection or conflict, then you aren't one of those loving couples that's reconnecting with sex. You're not. And you need to address all of the issues, the sexual issue and the emotional issue. And this is why I do what I do. And this is why you can reach out always for therapy or coaching and try to work on the real issue. The real issue is you don't not have enough time in the week to have sex. The real issue is that you guys cannot make peace with how much each other wants to have sex and cannot come to a happy medium that takes into account that's not going to feel like the first time, but that it could still be a loving thing. It isn't going to be all the time, and it's not going to be like when you were younger, but it could be a nice, loving, connecting experience as long as both people respect and honor each other's individual differences and desires in this area and come to some kind of a middle ground that works and that doesn't cause anybody tremendous heartache, and that isn't one person kind of completely deferring to the other in every single moment, emotionally, physically, every which way, but that is a common ground. All right, I hope you guys like this. More straight practical talk from me, and hopefully it helped somebody realize that in this life, you need a healthy dose of acceptance of reality if you don't want to be miserable and make people around you miserable too. All right, talk to y'all later. Have a great day. Bye-bye.